Mark 15. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5.
This is RFD Today, a daily look at the key topics impacting rural Illinois. If you live in Illinois, we examine the issues impacting you, your income, and your community. Here's your host for today's program, DeLaw Schonke.
Hey, good Thursday to you, Illinois. Thanks for joining us for this adventure in broadcasting on May 2. And again, this morning, at least around here, just more and more rain, more of the soaking rain kind of activity. Hopefully, this is the last day, at least for a few days, but look at next week's forecast, and there's more rain in there Monday and Tuesday as well, and continued concerns about what this means, especially on the Mississippi. Saw a post yesterday suggesting the third highest crest in history could very well be within the next few days. And to have that in early May certainly brings plenty of concerns what the rest of the year could be like. On the program today, Preston Wise at the FCC, Federal Communications Commission, talking about significant investments in rural broadband funds, trying to connect folks, especially between now and the next few years. Also, Representative Darren LaHood is scheduled to be on the program. If we can get him before votes take place. He was involved yesterday on some discussions regarding the biodiesel tax credit. He and Representative Sherry Bustos have been part of bipartisan work on that. And we'll hear from the National Biodiesel Board about why it's so important to get that thing renewed. Seems like every couple of years it's always up again, and it needs to be renewed from back in 2017, for crying out loud. And Pam Jansen, president of Illinois Pork Producers Association, will talk about animal health, and I'm sure we'll talk about late planting for them as well, farmers in Woodford County. But first, Rita has this with the folks at Pioneer.
Another conversation with Brad Rademacher. He is a field agronomist with Pioneer. And as we talked earlier in the week, Brad, no doubt it's later. We're going to turn the calendar into May. Even though it's late, we've been here before.
Right. There's been a few years ago we got started late with planting, still had outstanding yield potential. So as we talked earlier in the week, the time will come. We'll get our window. The equipment that we have, I think we'll get this crop in good fashion. We just have to wait for that time.
One of the things that's interesting, Mother Nature dictates as we know, and as you said, one of the things that we probably won't see and something that we thought we might see more of is early planted soybeans.
Yeah, we talked a lot about this over winter with a lot of customer meetings is the yield potential for planting soybeans early if we do get the opportunity. A few growers did, but most haven't had that chance yet. But we can still get really high soybean yields planting in early to mid-May, and that's the way it's looking like it's going to happen with all the heavy rainfall we're experiencing this week.
Now, as we get kind of further along, one of the other big challenges because of the Mother Nature and the calendar is weed management. It's sort of like starting late. That's even more of a challenge. So what are your thoughts there?
With the weed resistance issues that we've experienced the last several years, the traditional just post-only or post-applied only applications aren't enough anymore like they might have been in the past. So we really spend a lot of time talking about residuals. There's still a lot of good products out there that provide good residual control, and not just applying a residual once during the season, but apply residual twice. We've got this what we talk about overlapping residuals, and this goes for corn and soybeans both. If we can overlap those residuals, they still have good activity on a lot of the weeds that we do have resistance with some other chemistry, and that seems to do a much better job as far as keeping the fields clean.
Anything else that we haven't talked about? I know you mentioned in the first interview this week about farmers not panicking. So really safety is really going to come back as a message probably we need to kind of repeat.
Exactly. When we do get going, people are going to be going hard. Some of them, 18 hours or maybe even more a day. People are going to get tired. So be safe out there, and also think about the retailers as well. They're going to be doing ammonia, spraying, bringing seed around, fertilizer. basically anything you can think of. They've got a really constricted window there, so we're going to have to really be patient with our retailers as they have a big workload also this spring.
Pioneer Field Agronomist Brad Rademacher will be back with more RFD today.
All right, welcome back. Joining us over the phone now for the FCC. Got to make sure we keep this clean when you got an FCC guy on the phone. But Preston Wise is joining us. We'll be talking about broadband. Preston, how are you?
Good, thank you. How are you today?
Well, we're wet here, but we're doing okay. But just tell us about so new opportunities. A few years ago, there was Connect America Fund, and I assume that fund is has a couple years left to it. So more plans to connect more homes and businesses across the country.
That's absolutely right. As some of your listeners may already know, Chairman Pai's top priority in his tenure as chairman has consistently been closing the digital divide and bringing broadband and all the opportunity that comes with it to rural America. You know, we view broadband as, you know, providing not just the sort of media, social connections, but also real civic, educational, economic opportunity, whether it's telemedicine, it's precision agriculture, or it's just streaming Netflix, which some folks can't even do yet. We want to ensure that no matter where you live in America, you are enjoying the same modern economic opportunity that everyone else is.
Yeah. Plenty of people don't even realize the hardship that they have by not being able to stream Netflix, right?
That's right. I think you know, it's something that a lot of us you can do it take for granted, but you know, just those sort of social connections, seeing the same films, the same TV shows everyone else is seeing. I think it's definitely relevant to everyone. Absolutely.
Well, I was in rural Champaign County over the weekend, and the method of payment at the retail place was one of those little Macintosh, you know, one of those little computers that had the little thing connected to it, and you just stuck your card in there, and certainly that had to rely on a certain amount of connectivity. So that was in a town, I mean, that was in a zero stoplight town. So these things are becoming more and more relevant each day.
Absolutely, and our goal is to make sure that they're everywhere. And that's why we are launching the Rural Digital Opportunity Fund. This is going to be sort of in sort of scale unprecedented. It will spend approximately $20.4 billion over the next 10 years to deploy networks in rural areas, providing at least 25 megabit per second service, and covering 4 million or maybe more rural homes and small businesses. This is a big chunk of sort of what's left of what we call the digital divide. And we're going to do this in large part by repurposing some money that, as you mentioned, is coming to an end. Right now, the price cap carriers, which is the name we have for sort of the big incumbent carriers, the AT&Ts, the CenturyLinks, the Verizons of the world, they are collecting on a 6-year term some model-based support, just is sort of a fixed amount of money they agreed to accept to deploy 10-1 service over 6 years to their service areas. That money runs out at the end of next year, and so at that time, we are going to then transition all that money into this Rural Digital Opportunity Fund, which will be focusing on higher speed services, 25.3 or better, up to even gigabit in some areas. And it's going to cover, essentially, the goal is any area in the country where they are not served by 25.3 and they are designated in our view as high cost, expensive to serve, will be eligible to participate in this first of its kind reverse auction. It's first of its scale reverse auction. And for those of your listeners who don't know, a reverse auction is sort of what it sounds like. We essentially come up with what we view as the highest price it would cost to serve a certain area with broadband, and we allow carriers to come in and compete and outbid each other for who can serve that for the least amount of money. And through that mechanism, we've been able to serve a lot of folks with less money.
Yeah, lowest score wins, lowest bid wins.
Right.
In a case like that. So, yeah, some of this is certainly, well, of course, we understand we need connectivity and we'd like to do connectivity, but the costs associated with it can be prohibitive for a lot of folks.
Absolutely. Yeah, and that's one thing that this program seeks to accomplish, because it builds in. If you win a bid in a particular area, you're getting a fixed amount of support to provide service, and because we are paying all the support in, that will bring down the prices and make these services accessible to folks.
And interesting that you mentioned. So this may not be completely already, dollars already available, but it sounds like it's not going to take a lot of new dollars to make something like this work. Even $2 billion over 10 years, there's a lot of monies already to be used for that.
That's right. So most of that money is actually, almost all of that $2 billion annual amount is already being spent on the price caps I mentioned earlier. The price cap carriers, and so when their support term runs out, that money won't be renewed, and instead will go into this auction, as well as some other funds that are sort of becoming available. So this is actually, as currently envisioned, going to be no new money burdening taxpayers, just sort of reallocating it in a more efficient way.
Wow, I like that. Services for folks that need it at no new money. That sounds like seems pretty win-win, doesn't it?
I think it does, and that's, in our view, that is the power of the reverse auction and other similar, more market-focused reforms. The money I mentioned that goes to the price cap carriers right now, that was based on an estimation looking at sort of their costs over time that we knew about, and an estimate for what it costs, and we just said, we think you can provide service to these to people in your areas for this much money, will you accept it? And they did, and now they just get those checks cut every month actually. And so by bringing in some competition, we can really bring down prices, and it really opens it up to different technologies that might suit different areas better than others.
Gotcha. Well, hey, we have a commercial break coming up here. Stay on the line if you would, please, and we'll talk a little bit more in detail about this, but certainly makes sense on the farm, guys, in the tractor using yield monitors and using the technology that's possible. Grain elevators the same way. That needs to be reliable. It can't be fluctuating on a constant basis. So we need that kind of connectivity in the heartland, by all means. Preston Wise, FCC, joining us on a Thursday, RFD today.
Farm Week and FarmWeekNow.com journalist Kay Shipman connects rural routes for you. For 3 decades, Kay has delivered important news. She covers everything from legislative issues to the latest in soil and water conservation. Here's a bit about her rural roots.
I love covering so many aspects of agriculture and providing readers with the facts they need to make better decisions. I also get to work with farmers and meet new people along the way.
Be it routes or roots, RFD Radio, FarmWeekNow.com, and Farm Week keep you connected.
If you're in the mood for some sprucing up, you're in luck. From big to small or farm to front yard, your Illinois Farm Bureau member discount from John Deere is ready and waiting to help. It's easy to think green when it's the Rewards Loyalty Program with savings on equipment, special parts, and home and workshop products. Whether your tasks involve mowing, planting, or cleaning, you'll be set for whatever your work requires. All you need to do is sign up, have your membership number handy, and go to johndeere.com/Farm Bureau.
Thanks for shopping. Please come again.
Wow, you're really getting some bargains today. Think of all the money you've saved.
I know. And even better, my purchases are helping teach kids about agriculture.
Whoa, back up. I know you got some deals today, but I don't remember that purchase.
I used my Illinois Farm Bureau Visa card. Each time it's swiped, the IAA Credit Union makes a contribution to the Illinois Agriculture in the Classroom program.
Now that's a great deal. What else does your card do?
It's what it doesn't do. Charge me extra fees, have surprise rate jumps. Not with this card. I use it for all of my purchases.
I like the sound of that. Tell me, exactly what does Illinois Agriculture in the Classroom do?
They teach kids where their food really comes from. Just by using my card, I help provide teachers and volunteers with free materials so they can spread the message of the importance of agriculture in their classrooms.
You know, the IFB Visa card may be the best bargain yet. I'm going to get one of those for myself.
Get a great card. Help a great cause. Go to IAAFoundation.org and click on the IFB Visa card to get one of your own.
Okay, men, this is your time. Maybe you didn't choose this, but you're here now. You're going to go out there and be an all-star caregiver. It's up to you. So what are you going to do? You're going to go grocery shopping, cook, clean, be there emotionally and physically. You got to dig deeper. Drive them to physical therapy, doctor's appointments. Don't you forget about the pharmacy. No, you won't. Because That's what caregivers do. Don't give up. Don't ever give up. This is your time to show the world, your family, and yourself that you're tougher than tough. Now go out there and be the best caregiver this world has ever seen. Caregiving is tougher than tough. Find the care guides you need at aarp.org/caregiving. A public service announcement brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
Welcome back to RFD Today on a Thursday. I'm DeLoss Yonke. Preston Wise is joining us from the Federal Communications Commission about a $20 billion rural broadband fund. One of the questions I have, it says that Chairman Pai is proposing this fund. Is this something that has to go through Congress? Does it have to go through appropriations, or is this something the FCC can enact on its own?
No. So the FCC can definitely do this on its own. We have authority granted to us by Congress to operate the entire Universal Service Fund, which includes not only high-cost programs like the Connect America Fund and the Rural Digital Opportunity Fund, but then also the other programs, the Lifeline Fund, which provides subsidies to low-income customers who need phone service. Our Schools and Libraries program, which subsidizes broadband connections for schools and libraries, and then the Rural Healthcare Fund, which does the same thing for hospitals and clinics in rural areas. So we've got these four programs, and we have authority to collect money from phone subscribers to finance to fund those programs, and we have authority to adjust those programs and create new ones within the scope of the Universal Service Fund. However, the reason I say proposes is because this does need to go through the ordinary notice and comment process.
Oh, okay.
And so in that process, you will see later this year a notice of proposed rulemaking where we will lay out all of our proposals and invite the public to comment on any number of them that they wish to. And then once we see what kind of record develops after the comment period closes, then discussions will begin between the chairman and the other commissioners. And since this is a multi-headed agency, it's a commission of five, or it's a board of five commissioners. Then of course we'll have to get a vote on whatever the final order is going to be. And then once we have something that at least three of them can agree on, but hopefully all five, then we will be able to issue an order that will say, here's going to be the rules of the reverse auction, and we will ask our staff then to sort of start laying the groundwork to actually get the auction off the ground.
If you can speak to this, is this something that takes place, this kind of connectivity and breaking the digital divide and closing that divide, is that something then that's done with a lot of underground cable? Is it done through satellites? Is it a combination? Are there other things that help make that sort of thing work?
So this administration under Chairman Pai has focused on ensuring that all of its reverse auctions, like the Digital Opportunity Fund, will be what we call technology neutral. So we want to give everybody a shot at it because there are lots of different technologies and we can't always pick the best winner. That said, very broadly, we would expect that the auction will favor some types of bids over others. So, in other words, low latency services, the kind where you can get a faster response from the network, will get a sort of preferential treatment for their bids, as well as services deploying at higher speeds. So 25 megabits will be the minimum, but we will have above baseline perhaps 100 megabits or even a gigabit, and you will be able to get sort of extra points on your bid for providing those higher quality services. As far as what kind of technology folks are going to be using when they actually are building, it can be a range of things. It might be actual fiber optic cable in the ground. It might be coaxial cable like a cable network has being deployed in new areas. It might be what we call fixed wireless, which is the same kind of signal that your cell phone might get, but it is meant to just sort of directly connect like a home in one place with a tower that's doesn't have the kind of same range that a wireless mobile tower would have. And then, of course, in some areas where it's extremely difficult to serve, especially you see that, I don't think you'd see that much in a place like Illinois, but there are certainly parts of the country where satellite is the only real economical option, simply because the terrain is just too rugged.
Well, considering how relatively easy some of this appears. You know, I just get on my phone and I can find forecasts and I, find all kinds of information. But there is, on one end of there at least, there's a significant amount of cost just to develop it and then maintain it. I assume those are two big issues. It's one thing to build it and then it's another thing to maintain it over time.
Absolutely, and that's a big part of the reason that we spread these payments out over 10 years. When you do win the bid, part of it is because it does cover some of the actual deployment costs, but it's meant to help you cover the actual ongoing maintenance costs and operating costs of the network. But then sort of the second component of that is also accountability. We have defined deployment standards. So if you bid for a given area and you have, say, 2,000 locations you're obligated to serve now, you're going to have to deploy to 40% of those within a certain time, within a couple of years of the start of the auction, then 60% a couple of years later, 80%, then 100%. So you don't have to have them all done right away, but you have to meet certain milestones, or the commission will take that funding back and not give it to someone who's not delivering on their promise. So certainly we understand that we expect that the maintenance costs are part of it, but we also expect these businesses to be able to look at how much the support amount is going to be and determine for themselves, if they're getting the support for 10 years, what kind of network can they deliver.
All right. Well, we appreciate you having you on. We're up against another break, but we appreciate this. Best of luck. Hopefully this will benefit some rural communities in Illinois, but certainly rural communities throughout the heartland, throughout the country. So, Preston, thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. It's always a joy to get to talk about rural broadband and our efforts to bring it to every corner of the country and finally close the digital divide. And so I thank you for giving me a microphone for the day. Absolutely.
Preston Wise at the Federal Communications Commission. My son, he's 13 now, and we'll go anywhere, everywhere, and within 10 seconds he'll come up to me and say, Dad, I found the Wi-Fi. Connectivity for businesses today, and especially for the generations to come as well. Just absolutely huge and growing as, with each year passing by. Stay tuned. This is RFD Today.
More farm news and information ahead. Stay tuned for more RFD Today here on the Illinois Farm Bureau Radio Network.
Farm Week and FarmWeekNow.com journalist Daniel Grant connects rural routes for you. With more than 2 decades of reporting under his belt, Dan is the go-to source for farmers when it comes to commodities. Here's a bit about his rural roots.
I grew up on a grain and livestock farm near Roseville in Warren County. What I love about my job is working with people, traveling across Illinois, and visiting farms along the way.
Be it routes or roots, RFD Radio, FarmWeekNow.com, and Farm Week keep you connected.
Attention corn farmers. Your corn checkoff dollars are working with the U.S. Meat Export Federation to grow red meat export volumes. Because when we're exporting beef, we're also exporting corn. The beef industry consumes 28% of all corn fed to livestock, plus additional corn in the form of DDGs, a co-product of ethanol production. Now that's what we call working an angle. Your checkoff is working corn from all angles. Because of the Illinois Corn Marketing Board, your profitability is our bottom line. A message from the Illinois Corn Checkoff.
Spring is here and things are buzzing. Farmers and pollinators are working together to help feed us. In fact, 1 out of every 3 bites of food we eat exists because of bees, butterflies, birds, bats, and other insects. Pollinators are important to our food system and the ecosystem overall. That's why farmers and those in the agricultural industry are working together to protect pollinators through education, research, and conservation efforts. Visit ILAGformonarchs.org to join the buzz. That's ILAGformonarchs.org.
What's the excitement about buying a brand new car when you pay full price for it? County Farm Bureau members have a reason to be excited. A Farm Bureau membership gives you 2 car purchase discounts. When members buy a new Ford vehicle, they receive $500 off their purchase. And with a purchase of a qualifying Lincoln vehicle, they receive $750 off. Everyone loves a good deal, and the money saved is worth the price of our annual membership. This is just one of our 300,000 plus discounts that are always changing to fit our members' needs. Not a Farm Bureau member? Visit Illinois Farm Bureau online and join today.
All ag.
All Illinois.
All now.
There are a lot of smartphone apps out there, but do they have what's important to us here in Illinois? The Farm Week Now app does, and it's always at your fingertips. All ag, all Illinois, and 24/7 where and when you need it for free. Go to your app or Play Store on your smartphone, hit search, type in Farm Week Now, that's one word, and download it today. Brought to you by Illinois Farm Bureau, where we're all about farm, family, and food.
As you prepare for planting season, remember your neighbors. Whether you're an applicator, grower, or beekeeper, use FieldWatch to register your farm and monitor for sensitive sites around you. FieldWatch is a free, easy-to-use online mapping tool. Consulting FieldWatch is now a requirement for the over-the-top use dicamba products. Communicating with your neighbors will help you protect your farm and the environment. Don't wait. Go online to fieldwatch.com. Growing agriculture, we grow best together.
Welcome back to RFD today on Thursday. I'm DeLoss Yankee. We have a few minutes here with 18th District Representative Darren LaHood. Congressman, thank you very much. How are you?
Hey, DeLoss. Great to be with you and your listeners today.
Well, we appreciate this. There was some news yesterday about this as well, just about the biodiesel tax credit. You and Representative Bustos have been involved in that, just trying to get that thing back in place again.
Well, the biodiesel tax credit, DeLoss, has been an American success story, particularly in communities like mine across central and west central Illinois. And so yesterday we had a press conference in front of the Capitol with a large crowd to raise awareness on getting the tax credit passed. Senator Grassley from Iowa was there with me. Senator Ernst was with us also. This is a provision in our tax code that is helps sustain 60,000 jobs across the country and also help to create a better footprint in our environment when it comes to CO2 emissions. So biodiesel is vitally important. It's frustrating, the loss that this tax credit has lapsed. And we need it now more than ever. There is a lot of anxiety and stress out in our farm communities right now, particularly because of the trade war with China. This is something that is essential, again, for this country. And so yesterday, we raised awareness. My committee, the Ways and Means Committee, does have jurisdiction over this. We anticipate that we'll hopefully have a vote this month on it, and then we'll send it over to the Senate on it. But we're going to continue to raise awareness and educate members of Congress, Republicans and Democrats across the country that don't understand biodiesel and don't understand the positive impact it has on our economy and the environment.
I was going to ask, building coalition amongst the 435, but there are plenty outside of the Corn Belt that benefit from this, don't they?
Absolutely. It's not only farmers in rural America. It's producers. It's truck drivers. Consumers of energy all across the country. We had folks there yesterday from Rhode Island. We had folks from Connecticut, folks from California. The benefits are extensive. Not only to rural America, but across the country. And that's, frankly, part of why we had the press conference was to highlight that. And then now to work with our colleagues across the spectrum of where they come from, different states, different jurisdictions, whether it's rural, whether it's urban, whether it's suburban, and talk about the positive benefits that biodiesel has.
Absolutely. Well, so much biodiesel makes its way to the Northeast. It serves as heating, and, biomass is certainly very important to that as well. So now, Senator Grassley being there and being head of, I believe, Chairman of Finance Committee, so hopefully that helps. Is the heavier lift in the House, do you think?
Well, it starts in the House. All of these tax bills have to start in the House, and they start in my committee, the Ways and Means Committee. So Senator Grassley mentioned that yesterday, that we have our job to do in the House, but once we get it passed here, it'll go over to the Senate, and he'll have jurisdiction in his Senate Finance Committee on that. And he gave us assurances yesterday that he thinks he'll have the votes to do that, which is important. It's also important to remember, DeLoss, that Illinois, 4 of the last 5 years, has led the nation in soybean production. And just this last year, we led the nation in soybean production. So this equals jobs and economic opportunities for our district. And Senator Grassley understands that. I understand. I also reminded Senator Grassley and Senator Ernst that we beat out Iowa in terms of soybean production. They may beat us in corn, but we beat them in soybeans. So I had to again give them a little nudge on that.
Yeah, we destroyed them in soybeans this past year. So, yes, so always good to remind on that sort of thing. So hopefully soon, and as we mentioned, this is bipartisan work, like bordering your district, Representative Bustos, so even on different sides of the aisle, certainly something you can agree on.
Absolutely. This is not about politics. This is about getting things done. This is about what's good for this country, what's good for energy policy, and good for rural America. And by the way, we had another Democrat from Iowa there, Dave Loebsack, who I border Iowa on the Mississippi River there. He was there. We had another Congresswoman from Iowa who's a Democrat also there. And then we had Sheldon Whitehouse, who's a U.S. Democrat senator from Rhode Island. That gave us a bit of geographic diversity there too. So yes, this is not about politics. This is about good policy, and that's why we were all there.
Excellent. Well, you're probably going to see quite a bit about infrastructure when you come home this weekend too, with all the rains that we've been having. Surely you've been updated on water levels and the need for improvements for the river system.
Well, it's unfortunate. I know it's been way too wet back home. I know a lot of our farmers are so anxious to get in the fields, but haven't been able to do that, or in a very limited way. But yeah, all this rain and the flooding on the Mississippi and parts of the Illinois River highlight the need for infrastructure. We've got to continue to upgrade our inland waterway system. That means more resources. Very good meeting this week. The two Democrat leaders, Pelosi and Schumer, went to the White House, met with the president. They came out talking really positively about infrastructure. I mean, they talked about a $2 trillion infrastructure plan. That's a lot of money to go into infrastructure, but that would be good for rural America, good for our locks and dams on the Illinois and the Mississippi River, good for dredging, but also good for roads and bridges, which we vitally need, and our rail system to get product and commodities to market. So the big thing will be how do you pay for infrastructure? The president said they're going to meet 3 weeks from now to talk about specific plans on how you fund it. But this was good news for infrastructure. Now we just got to get it across the finish line.
Well, I know you have to go vote, so thanks so much for the time. We appreciate it, and hopefully we'll see you soon.
Okay, DeLoss, have a great weekend. Thank you.
18th District Representative Darren LaHood. We got him just before going in to do some voting, so we appreciate that. We'll talk more about biodiesel with Donnell Rehagen, CEO of National Biodiesel Board. That's next on RFD Today.
RFD Radio Network's DeLoss Yankee connects rural routes for you. DeLoss delivers essential farm and food-related news to our listeners. His witty voice has been heard on the air for more than 2 decades. Here's a bit about his rural roots.
Growing up on a farm prepared me for my career. I try to know a little about a lot of things and let the people I interview be the experts. I've always wanted to be on the radio. I'm just happy to do what I enjoy.
Be it routes or roots, RFD Radio, FarmWeekNow.com, and Farm Week keep you connected.
Does the warmer weather have you itching for a weekend getaway? Take your Illinois Farm Bureau membership savings with you.
Farm Bureau members can save up to 20% at choice hotels, including favorites like Comfort Suites, Sleep Inn, Quality Inn and Suites, with even more to choose from.
Call 800-258-2847 or visit the Choice Hotels website to search all the hotels at once and to make advance reservations.
Contact your local County Farm Bureau for your discount code number.
Let's check the markets on the RFD Radio Network. I'm DeLoss Yankee. Well, we're back down again for soybeans. Beans came off the lows quite a bit yesterday. We still finished lower yesterday, but we came quite a bit off the lows, but we've given that back again today. Corn, meanwhile, just a little bit lower. July down 3/4 cent, 361 3/4, 367 3/4 for July. September down 1, 375 1/4. East down 1, 385 1/4. July soybeans off 7, 844 3/4. August off 7, 851. November down 6.5, 866 1/2. July wheat though up 9.5 cents, 445 1/2. We have livestock. June hogs were up to limit yesterday and are up another 255 today. 93.77. June cattle up 32, 114.20. DeLoss Yankee, RFD Radio Network. Welcome back to RFD Today on a Thursday. I'm DeLoss Yankee. And Danelle Rehagen is CEO of the National Biodiesel Board over in Jefferson City. Wow, Jefferson City. Danelle, how are you? How wet, how high is the river over your way?
Well, it's pretty high right now and rising. We had about 4 inches of rain the night before last, and calling for more today. So definitely watching those river levels.
Is it out as the river goes north, or can it expand to the north at all?
Well, it can a bit, but we kind of squeeze it here in Jefferson City between the bluffs, and so we kind of occasionally get some of the worst as the water comes down the river.
Well, and that's the truth, yeah. All right, well, let's talk about biodiesel, though. Talking about the tax credit, you've been with Biodiesel Board in different capacities for more than 15 years, and this just seems, unfortunately, this has been part of the struggle all the time, is just keeping that tax credit in place.
It has been. Unfortunately, we've become used to this on and off again, but what we haven't been used to is this length of time that the tax credit was last in place 16 months ago. At that time when it was reinstated, it was reinstated retroactively for the previous year. So our industry has really been going on 3 years without a prospective tax credit, and of course that's what tax credits are meant to do, is incentivize future investment, and it's impossible for our industry to do that when everything seems to be so uncertain.
I was going to ask, because of the retroactive, then what do you hope for out of, is there anything retroactive for this, or is this all moving forward, or is it a combination?
No, we're very hopeful it's going to be a combination because, unfortunately the way our tax credit works, it's been in place since 2005. So the industry, not only our industry, but the downstream blenders and distributors of fuel have been used to it being there. So even though the tax credit's been missing since January 1st of 2018, the industry has been treating it like it's coming back. And so that $1 a gallon is part of that transactional cost of biodiesel. And that's what's really putting some extreme pressure on our biodiesel producers right now, is the fact that for 16 months now they've been carrying a large portion of the value of that $1 on their books as something owed to the downstream blenders that they're selling product to.
I was at a conference in March talking to, he's up in Boston. We were talking about this, and just about how crucial that $1 a gallon is. The difference between, we'd love to help you, but we're not going to do it just because that $1 a gallon really closes the gap.
Yes. And originally it was in place, when it was put into place, it was what allowed the economics of building a biodiesel plant to really work. And now, as Representative LaHood was talking about, it has an impact on all the way down through the supply chain, all the way down to consumers. So that $1 a gallon is being missed by all of the elements of the supply chain. And unfortunately, our biodiesel producers are carrying the largest portion of that burden, and have been now again for over a year and a half.
Yeah, Paul Nazaro was a gentleman I talked to about that.
Yeah.
And I know Illinois Soy, and I'm sure you have been in D.C. many times talking about this sort of thing. You feel, and we just had Representative LaHood on, you feel confident about getting this through in the months ahead?
Well, we've got to feel confident about it. I mean, the good news is, as Representative LaHood mentioned, it's a very bipartisan, bicameral issue. But that also makes it the most frustrating part for us, is everybody's for us, but they can't figure out how to make it happen. And so, as he mentioned, we had a press conference yesterday with the goal of just kind of turning up the volume now that they're back at work again there in Congress, and trying to make sure that this is something they're looking at taking care of. This is unfinished business. This is not new stuff. And we want them to take care of this unfinished business, and we need them to do it as promptly as possible.
Is it because of the way the system works? Because, why do we have to go over this every 2 years? Is that just the way that has to go for tax credits? Or, permanent, I'm sure, would be too much to ask for, but is there anything in the middle?
Well, there is and there has been. There's lots of arguments about tax extenders and whether that's good tax policy, but nevertheless, biodiesel tax credit is one of a couple of dozen tax extenders that's being held up by this debate. And last year, the previous Congress was looking at whether there's a better way of going about business, and so we engaged in a conversation with previous Ways and Means Chairman Brady about what what could a better option be for the biodiesel industry, and we settled on a longer term, 7-year, but a phased down tax credit. So the dollar was going down in increments over a 7-year time frame, and our industry was happy about that conversation because it finally would give us the certainty looking forward that we haven't had for 10 years, and allow us to make decisions about the future, knowing what that future was going to look like.
Well, we've asked these questions for a long time because we can crush soybeans to make meal, and that results in this pile of oil over here. So what are we going to do with all the oil? And biodiesel is a pretty good alternative, or a pretty good solution of what to do with all that, especially 4.3 billion bushels of soybeans that can generate a lot of oil.
Yeah, here in 2019, we expect, and USDA projects, that biodiesel will consume over 8 billion pounds of soybean oil. So obviously a very significant player in the soybean oil market, biodiesel is. And obviously we want to see that number grow. And but right now things are a little bit tough to make decisions as a producer of biodiesel to make more when on every single gallon you're kind of raising your risk from a financial standpoint.
Yeah. It checks so many boxes. Just, if all this clean air, all this green talk, well, here's a solution right in front of you.
Well, and there's regions of the country and that have recognized that. The state of California is one of the biggest consumers of biodiesel that we have, and that's projected to grow exponentially over the next 10 years for that reason. Now, whether that's the reason you're wanting biodiesel is for cleaner air, or whether it's the work that it does for the agricultural industry or the support it provides for rural economies. I mean, we've got a great story across the board. It's just a matter of the policymakers kind of understanding that this is really a no-brainer, as Senator Grassley said during our press conference yesterday. The biodiesel tax credit is a no-brainer.
Yeah, it would just be nice to, you can promote its benefits, but so much energy in just defending this. There are better ways to get your work done, unfortunately.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that could make our industry take off that don't have to do with the tax credit as well, but we find ourselves spending an inordinate amount of our time trying to get that basic premise in place. And again, that's why we enjoyed the opportunity to talk about a different arrangement last year, and we would certainly welcome that opportunity to do that again. But at this point in time, we really need to get our producers back to where they needed to be with the 2018 credit and now the 2019 credit, and I guess figure out what the best way forward is after that.
Certainly this is a success story of the checkoff program as well, I would think.
Yes, it is a huge success story. The soybean checkoff has been instrumental. I mean, basically forming the biodiesel industry, the soybean industry did. And this is 25 years ago we're talking about. And so, now we're, again, consuming 8 billion pounds a year of soybean oil. And, the studies show that biodiesel adds about 60 cents a bushel to the value of soybeans. So just because of the biodiesel industry. So it's been an extremely valuable partnership between the soybean industry and the biodiesel industry, both helping each other get to where we want to be and the success that we've all seen.
All right. Thanks, sir. Donnell Rehagen, CEO of the National Biodiesel Board. We'll be back and conclude things on RFD today. Just a moment. Let's check livestock markets on the RFD Radio Network. I'm DeLoss Yawkey. Illinois direct hog market has held firm for the better part of the week, $53 to $58 a hundredweight. That's steady on the top end, but it's come up about $4 a hundredweight on the bottom end. And sow market was $1 to $3 higher yesterday, 52 to 60 for lightweights, 56 to 69 now at top on the heavyweights. Light boars with a top of 35. CME Group has reported agricultural complex volume averaging 1.6 million contracts per day during the month of April. That was down 10% compared to the year before, but for livestock, average daily volume was up 21%, 150,000 contracts. Lean hog futures and options average daily volume grew 52% compared to the year before, 85,000 contracts. This is the RFD Radio Network.
How do people benefit from raising livestock here in Illinois? Rich Giebert, Illinois farmer, president of the Illinois Farm Bureau.
Well, growing up on a livestock farm was always interesting, and I enjoy it more today than I did back then. But it did give me the opportunity to have a good work ethic, learn to get up in the morning. And you know, that was difficult during my senior days at high school and college days. I had a tendency not to go to bed at a respectable hour. But no, it was always enjoyable on the farm and getting up before daybreak and milking the cows and getting the chores done and then go about the rest of the day's business.
Illinois Farm Bureau, along with beef, corn, milk, pork, and soybean associations, make up the Livestock Development Group, supporting the Illinois livestock sector. For more information, check out illinoislivestock.org.
You probably know that growing hemp for CBD is now legal in Illinois, but did you also know that industrial hemp grow licenses are now available on Illinois Department of Agriculture's website? Click there on plants, then click industrial hemp. Hemp for CBD net profits can exceed $20,000 per acre. Hemp Foundry in Monee, Illinois' first hemp processor for CBD, is offering rooted female clones to jumpstart the 2019 season. Planting female hemp clones is much more reliable and more economical than planting hemp seeds. Come to Hemp Foundry's open house on Tuesday, May 7th, from 1 to 4, and save $1,000 per acre on rooted female clones. Visit hempfoundry.com for details. Again, that's hempfoundry.com. We're excited to meet you in Monee, Will County, on May 7th. hempfoundry.com.
Welcome back to RFD Today. Pam Jansen is joining us in Woodford County, president of the Illinois Pork Producers Association. Pam, how are you?
I'm good. I hope everybody else is doing okay also.
How much rain, how much standing water do you have?
We've got plenty of lakefront property on our farm, so we've had plenty. I'm pretty sure we've had probably at least 5 to 6 inches, I'm sure.
Oh boy. Have you planted anything yet this spring?
No. We haven't been out at all.
Well, we've been through it and we'll go through it again, but unfortunately this is an awfully difficult year. So, President of Illinois Pork, and boy, what a year to be President of Illinois Pork. If there's one thing we can talk about, I have a PIN code on my debit card, but PIN codes are different for pork producers, aren't they? This is something that pork producers have really been talking about.
Yes, we've been doing and I presume you're talking about the premise ID is
yes.
what I think you're referring to?
Yes.
Yes, that's going to come into play if we have an ASF outbreak. We're hoping that all producers have their premise IDs and have also called down to the state and verified their addresses to make sure all of their information is correct. So when and if that ever happens, we've got everything and everybody up to date and we're good to go.
Okay. That's something that just takes that's not a big time consumer, is it? But that sounds like an awfully important thing to have in place.
No. Generally, most pork producers already have a premise ID. It's a matter of just calling down and verifying that the information that they have on record at this point is correct. So, just in case, you have somebody's phone number that changed or something like that. So we need all of the current information up to date.
Absolutely. Well, this is one of those things that, you hear all these stories and what kind of devastation it can do, and also no vaccine for African swine fever, something that you don't wish on anyone, but if it's to take place, hopefully it's halfway around the world.
Right. We are trying our hardest to make sure that our borders are safe and we don't end up with that here.
I think one of the challenges in some places, like in Europe, where you have a lot of wild boars running around, and so that has made keeping it in check that's been making it more difficult.
Yes, that's one reason why we do have some of those around in the U.S. that we try to take care of. But in Europe, they just roam free, and they spread it so easily because they do, they move around from area to area, so that they just transmit that disease wherever they end up.
Well, it's one thing to worry about, being in the Mississippi fly zone and issues that especially in poultry business had a couple of years ago, but the number of ways that it could get here. It's interesting as something that you have to defend against that you certainly can't see or have to deal with.
Correct. There's no way to be totally biosecure, just like you said, with the navigation of birds and people that are coming into the U.S. from other countries. We have been doing our best to try to keep that at bay. We've put some more. We've had the Beagle Brigade up a little bit from the numbers that we've had. The beagles are very, very useful animals. They've been trained very well to be able to sniff out that product if it's coming in. So we have really stepped up our security at our ports and other areas of transportation that people would be traveling to come into the U.S.
Well, a few years ago it was PEDV. Unfortunately, and PRRS has always been a case. We'd like to promote pork, but we certainly have to make sure that supply is healthy as well.
Correct. That is correct.
Yeah. And by the way, pork supply is safe. Pork is absolutely fantastic to eat, safe to eat, all those sort of things, and we can certainly enjoy it any time of the year. Well, hopefully you get a couple of dry days, Pam, and best of luck to you, and hopefully you have a safe and productive planting season. So thanks so much for joining us. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you for having me. Talk to you later.
Pam Jansen, she's in Woodford County up in Monunk, and 200 head farrow to finish pig farm in Woodford County. She's president of Illinois Pork Producers Association at ilpork.com. On tomorrow's program, let's see, Don Schaefer's not on tomorrow's program. Kelly Estes will be on tomorrow's program, and any chance that we drowned